That is, I think it's an innovative approach, and I think it's worth evaluating it further. It's a very new way to look at it.
Yeah, I agree. I see a lot of negotiation and conversation about all these little details that we've kind of uncovered here. What's going to be the best pathway forward for that? Because there's still got to be some kind of additional control early on. So yeah, I'm receptive to it as well. I don't see any reason why not to do a little more exploration.
Okay.
Right.
I mean,
Yeah, and,
go ahead.
well, the supplemental or temporary measures, that adds an interesting aspect. How do you do it? What's the time frame? Are they permanent? Are they temporary? You know, to what scale are they? You know, and so maybe that is enough for tonight, and they have a sense, and we can put our heads together. I don't know where to go from here.
Well, I guess I will say that, during construction, we would have to provide the erosion center control controls. And that's typically when you have the most, problems, to say the least. Usually after the grass is established and things are in place, it's not usually as bad as during construction. So just mention that as a side note. I mean, I think we were here just to see if you were willing to accept the new approach that DEP is promoting. So,
Yeah, the real question is, if you're saying some type of structural measure needs to be in place.
I won't approach it this way then, because it's too costly to do it this way.
Well, you know what? I've seen, what terraces and things will do on farmland, how it'll catch in a slow release. And, that's just land reconfiguration to do something like that. And something on a smaller basis, you're going to get significant control out of that. It's basically just contouring the land you have there. I don't think we can look at this like on day one, we're going to get the control that DEP is looking for. So there has to be something else in there to give us some of that control.
I think, in my mind, in terms of evaluating it further, it comes down to what is DEP's expectation on day one? What is their expectation on the controls?
Well, I think they've looked at this approach and they understand that it won't be there day one. It's just, it's a long-term planning.
So they're acknowledging those controls are
Yeah,
not
they
there.
know that up front.
So maybe you have to think of it that way, Jeff.
Yeah.
It is a long-term approach. There's no getting around that.
So really, think of it as no controls up front
Yeah.
for the controls on over time.
And precedent is that set.
Yeah. That's a little concerning. Well. No, I think it's a novel idea, and I think it deserves consideration.
Yeah, I don't think most people can do 3 times the amount of impervious that they're putting in to trees. It's just not, people don't do that.
Right.
So you have to be remembering that how much we're adding. Yeah, it's not a swap for 1 for 1, it's 3 for 1. So,
Okay. Well, let's keep talking.
okay, that sounds good. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Next item, garden spot frame and alignment. As you're aware, the project's done at this point. They've been up and operating for a while and have requested a final closeout. Casey from our office has been on site and observed certain things. There's some minor items that have been identified in an email July 2nd. So the motion at this point would be a motion to authorize the full release of the current financial security being held by the township for the garden spot preliminary final land development plan in the amount of $13,318.65 upon the applicant's consultant completing the minor remaining items as noted in Becker's email correspondence dated July 2nd, 2020.
Anybody here representing that?
I did not expect anything.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second that.
Any comments or questions? All in favor, say aye. Opposed, no. Motion carried. Thank you.
The next item is the East Cocalico Township Stevens Pump Station upgrades. The authority submitted information that was shared with you. I think you have it. This is the pump station on Stevens Road. They're proposing some upgrades there. In addition to the upgrades, they'd be pursuing a PennDOT permit and removing portions of the stone that's out there, showing a net decrease in the amount of impervious or semi-impervious areas. They had, I had an opportunity to discuss the request with the Planning Commission. The request being a waiver of land development. We could have made an interpretation that the pump station maybe doesn't even meet the definition of land development, but just to be above board and play it safe and make sure everybody's aware of what's going on, we encourage the authority to submit, and this is after talking to Tom and Tony, have the authority submit the request and process it this way. So the Planning Commission supported the waiver of land development for the pump station modifications. I think I had also outlined to you some, in an email, some suggested modifications to that in terms of additional conditions that we could place on there. If you want me to read the suggested motion, read it. If there's any other discussions. And we were trying to keep this proceeding in a timely manner to keep the authority on schedule. So the motion as suggested would be to conditionally approve a waiver modification of the East Cocalico Township Chapter 194 Land Development Plan Processing Requirements for the East Cocalico Township Authority ECTA Stevens Pump Station Upgrade Project as outlined in the waiver documentation forwarded to the Township by CDM Smith on July 8, 2020, conditioned upon the following conditions. One would be East Cocalico Township Authority and their contractor installing, monitoring, maintaining temporary erosion and sedimentation control measures necessary to comply with applicable Chapter 102 and LCCD, as being the Lancaster County Conservation District requires. Next would be East Cocalico Township Authority obtaining a PennDOT permit for the proposed modifications to the existing access and associated modifications within or adjacent to the existing PennDOT Stevens Road SR 1045 right-of-way. Third would be all existing gravel areas to be removed and reestablished as grass shall be scarified, topsoil stabilized with vegetative cover, to result in drainage characteristics reflective of grass cover. 4 would be any proposed modifications to site grading shall not adversely concentrate or divert stormwater flows in the area. And 5, any modifications to exterior site lighting shall utilize full cutoff fixtures and be in compliance with applicable township standards. And I don't tell you any more further. They would, if that is approved, then they follow through with Tony on any permitting.
There's nobody here.
I don't expect a representative from the authority here.
Okay.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second that.
Any comments or questions? All in favor, say aye. Opposed, no. Motion carried. Thank you.
I think that's it. The only other thing to highlight would be, we are working with Pepperidge Farm on some maintenance upgrades to their existing stormwater facilities in response to prior observations and so forth. And they've been very cooperative, and in fact, Veronica Doobie is representing them on some of those upgrades. And through discussions with Tom and Tony, they've been deemed maintenance activities and not requiring any formal plan. It's really making sure the prior approved plans and the design concepts reflected on those back in the 80s are being fully implemented properly today. So that's kind of an update. That's all I have.
Okay, thank you. Any questions of Brent? Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you. Maybe a right-way agreement for discussion only?
Yeah, we have a gentleman that would like to install a pool on his property, Mr. Niven on 38 Hayloft Road. Due to work that he's done on his home and hard landscaping, to get the equipment in to install the pool will not fit through the fencing. So he would need to access the back of his property through our township park. Tony and I went out and looked at that, saw that he does have a hardship. We did have Tom draw up an agreement, but since that time, Mr. Becker has looked at that, and it appears to be wetlands back there. So we're not even sure if a pool can go in at this point in time. So if they determine that a pool could go in, we need to redo the agreement to address the wetlands. So at this point in time, do you have anything to add to that?
No, it was Casey and with Tony and from Casey from our office, and really the issue is that the prior subdivision plan reflected regulated wetlands in the general area there, and immediately it says those should be verified or confirmed not to be an issue, or they should be avoided to comply with applicable standards. So it's really beyond your control. It either is state or federally regulated or it's not, and that's a determination that appropriate professional will have to make before you sign off. So.
Just to add to that, I did receive a call from the engineer who's doing the work for this particular property owner. They're aware of the wetlands, and they are going to modify the plan to hopefully respect all of the wetlands. So we'll wait and see what that plan looks like.
Okay. Martin text amendment, Cocalico Creek Road, previously tabled.
All right, good evening, members of the board. Back again. It's been a little bit of a delay. We were talking before the meeting started that it seemed like years ago, but it was just February. And at that time, we had, I think, had a really helpful discussion with the board on the proposed text amendment. We're back again. I've talked with Jordan and Rachel a bit about that, and we've made a few proposed adjustments that we want to review. Jordan, I think, is going to start with just a little bit of an opening to kind of reorient us all to what they're really looking to do, and then I'm going to talk briefly about what we're proposing and kind of engaging that discussion again to see where the board's at.
Thanks, Whit. Well, good evening, everybody. It's good to see everybody even behind the masks, kind of get back to some sense of normality. But just to recenter us a little bit, it's been a little bit of time since we discussed it. I think, looking back, it's been about a year and a half, I think, since we first sat down with Tony and Brent. My wife and I started talking about what we can do in our farming operation. It's no longer a dairy. We grain farm it and grow produce there. And so what's the best course of action to use unused buildings? We don't want them going into disrepair, and so what can we do with them? And we want it to be something that's low impact on the farm. We want that farming to be the main focus. And we also want it to be something that my wife Rachel could manage. Something would ever happen to me, she can't run the produce farm by herself, she can't run the grain operation by herself. So what's the best course of action for that? And also give some long-term viability and diversification. For a small farm like us, diversification is key. I'm not going to make a living on farming the acres we have on grain. And so what can we do for my kids down the road to make sure there's some diversification there? So looking at all those things, we were looking at what can we do with these buildings. Renting out those empty spaces seemed like something that would work there. So we originally sat down with the builder, discussed this, and his advice was, well, you have these buildings, you have the square footage, why don't we take them down and put them where you want them, reorient them where you want them, and build something new. So we kind of went down that path. Hindsight being 20/20, that probably wasn't the best course of action. It took us away from our farm focus. It was a little bit bigger scale than what we kind of wanted to go through. And so we kind of resat back down. We brought Dwight in, kind of gave some advice on that. Sat down with Tony and Brent again, kind of looked at this plan again. So we wanted to kind of tailor that with farming being the main focus and smaller than our original plan, potentially, not detracting from the farm. If we can keep it small, we can kind of keep it to that maybe not even putting signage out, word of mouth, there's cost down, just as a supplemental income on a small scale. So cost is an issue because if we pour too much money into it, then we have to make it scale bigger for cash flow. And so that, of course, takes away from the main goal of being farm. So that's kind of where we're at. We want to be farmers who rent space out, not the other way around. So we're kind of looking at this and trying to figure this out. We're asking for a text amendment to this because we're in the C1 commercial zone. So if this was ag, if this was an ag zone, these secondary businesses are already allowed to, certain square footage there, and as long as they don't supplant the main farming operation. So we're in that C1, it's not necessarily stated, or the language isn't very clear on that ag side. So that's kind of why we're suggesting this text amendment. For us, these exceptions are key, diversification is key, and that next generation counts on this. So without these exceptions, we're really probably better off selling the land we have and buying farmland. We've lived there, my kids are the 5th generation. We don't want to do that, but the reality of it is, if we can't, then we're better off just selling that commercial and be done. I'm sure you guys probably, competition is what it is. Get pressure from competing businesses surrounding these exceptions to farms. The reality of that is they could farm as well. They could do the same thing. So, and we'll be restricted to farms, of course, and nothing's preventing anybody else from doing that same thing. So we just kind of have to determine if that's something you guys are in favor of, if these farms is a main focus for the township or not, and allowing that diversification as it is in the ag already. So, Dwight?
Yeah, good, thanks, George. So I do have just a little bit of a handout to, I'll send a few your way, and then a couple this way too. Thank you, Chief. Just very quickly, because I know all of you are familiar since this is the 3rd time that we've talked about this, but the first page just shows you where it's located. Bit of a unique situation. You have a farm in the C1 district and they want to keep it a farm. As you know, if you look at the 2nd page, farm occupations are permitted in the ag district. We have a farm in the C1 district and farm occupations aren't permitted. If I recall, I think the discussion last time was size, and there was some concern about the farm occupation currently allows up to 4,000 square feet. And if you recall, I copied what we had proposed before, which was if it was in the C1 district, we were requesting 10,000 square feet. And so Jordan and Rachel and I talked about that because we felt like the supervisors felt that that was maybe beyond what you would want to see on a farm, and it was maybe too close to a mini storage unit that you would see elsewhere. So if you look at the last page, what you see is essentially kind of what we're viewing as the compromise or proposal to address what we heard from the supervisors last time, and that's really 2 things. If you look at section 3F at the bottom there, basically it says the ag zone and C1 zones can allow farm occupations of up to 4,000 square feet. That's what the ordinance says now. Within the C1 zone, you can have an additional 3,000 square feet for a total of 7. Before we were at 10, so we reduced it by 3,000. But only if you have at least 30 acres and you front on 272. So we feel that that would, I'm not sure there's many properties that are farms along 272 that would be interested in this, but it does limit it to only those that have access, and it significantly reduces the square footage. So that's kind of what we put out there for some additional feedback. I think last time it was tabled for the board members to think about it some more, and for us to maybe gather our thoughts and come back with some new ideas. And we think by reducing the size, it makes it more appropriate to a farm operation. They would have a lot more square footage of vacant buildings, but they're saying, we understand that there's a threshold here where it's more than what a farm maybe can naturally, be used for, and it turns it into maybe a commercial operation. And I appreciate there was some concerns that, somebody comes in with a miniature storage unit and they had to go through this whole process, and we're coming in and saying, oh, we'd like to do this without going through that process. I mean, I think Jordan has kind of addressed that, but by reducing this, to me, it makes it seem like this is an appropriate use for a farm in the C1 district. And I would just add, and you've heard this before, but we want to help farmers and we want to help young farmers. And to the extent that this presents, I think, some consistency with the ag district and very little risk in terms of somehow it being used in other areas of the township, I don't think it will have any unintended consequences, which is usually what we're always worried about, not so much this property, but one that you're not thinking about in the future. So, any questions or comments?
Refresh my memory a little bit. Last time, I believe we were talking 30 to 40 units in the buildings that were there. Was that a number that you threw out there, or?
I don't know. I think there were different options and configurations, and I don't know, Jordan, if you have specific numbers. I guess we were focused not so much on the number of units, but the square footage. Now, I suppose the more units, you could have more people coming in and out, but these storage units are going to be assessed, maybe once or twice a month. We don't see any issue with this amount of square footage and people coming in and out. But I don't know if you have a sense of the number of units.
It highly is variable in size that we want to put in. My preference is to put larger ones in for less people. But, it just depends what building we end up using, what makes sense for that building setup.
In my mind, it's a little hard to make a judgment without a firm set of facts.
Well, if you look at the existing ordinance, it says 4,000 square feet. It doesn't say the number of units. So, you could potentially, I guess, have 40 units of 100 square feet, or you could have, so, I have never seen a home occupation that has square footage and then a number of units limit on it. It would usually, I think, go by the square footage, but.
Well, I look at it as relative to the amount of traffic being created.
And I appreciate that, but again, we were just using the farm occupation as it exists. So this is allowing a farm occupation in the C1 district on a farm. So it would apply to using a barn not just for storage units, but I suppose if you wanted to have a additional condition that if a farm occupation is used for storage units, that there be a limit on the number of storage units. I think we could try and incorporate that, but it would then affect your ag district storage units as well.
I just go back to my zoning days a little bit. It's not for us to tell you when it was zoning what you're allowed to do. It's up to you to say what you want to do. Now, I guess this is a different situation, but, I still look at it similarly. What exactly is it? When it came to zoning, when you're creating a lot of traffic with a business in an area, it's a consideration on the decision. And, I look at this in a similar way. Creating excess traffic there can be a problem. And, and the other thing that I look at here too, address the spot zoning issue.
There's no spot zoning. We're not rezoning the land. So spot zoning would be, say, we take an ag farm in the middle of the countryside and we put in a C1 commercial district and put a gas station out there. That's spot zoning. I would suggest to you that the ordinance as written, allowing ag uses in your C1 district, but not allowing a farm occupation is an oversight that should be corrected, even if you don't increase the square footage. There is no logical planning reason that a farm in the ag district can have a farm occupation, but a farm in the C1 district, and that's a permitted use, an ag use is permitted in your C1 district, can't have a farm occupation. That was just a drafting oversight. There's no logical reason. All we're saying is, because you're in the C1 district, and if it's along 272, you should be allowed to increase the square footage a little bit. So that's not a spot, that wouldn't be a spot zoning issue at all.
It's not spot zoning, but it's a text amendment that's addressing specifically just this situation. And that's kind of what spot zoning does. It's not spot zoning, I agree with that. But
I mean, I guess I disagree with that. I think text amendments are often written to focus on the situation at hand so that there's not unintended consequences. The risk that most boards are concerned about is you make a text amendment, it applies across the entire district. And so if you don't keep it focused, then it could allow things in different areas that you didn't intend. At this point in time, I mean, we wouldn't have to limit along Route 272, but I think most of your C1 district already is along 272. So I'm not sure. And it's very common that you would have an acreage limitation before you'd be able to go up for more square footage. And that makes logical planning sense because you don't want a 5-acre farmette that has 7,000 square feet of storage, because then it can't really sustain it. So there's some balance in that, and you know, I think Brent even suggested tie it to some acreage, because then you're not just saying there's not a reason for the additional square footage, it's tied to the size of the property. So, you know, those were things that we put in because we thought the supervisors would want that, but if the response is no, we don't like that, we wouldn't. I mean, we could take off the requirements that it be along 272 and 30 acres. I mean, I don't think that's spot zoning, but
no, it's not spot zoning.
No, you're asking for a change in parameters.
and change for what?
In parameters.
Sure, and that's what any text amendment is.
Yeah.
I mean, that's
That's what I was getting to.
yeah.
If I can address the traffic potential issue, judging what guys are telling me as far as in and outs, the average visit is once every 2 months. If we did 30, that's 15 people a month. I can have a birthday party bigger than that in my house.
Well, I think if you look at what's permitted as a farm occupation in your ag district, you're going to have uses that generate a lot more trips than what we're talking about here. So
They go through zoning and
they don't.
for secondary use, right?
I'm sorry.
For secondary use, Tony, on.
Second principle use possible.
Yeah.
Well, a farm occupation, I don't think is a second principal use. Farm occupation, I think, is permitted. You wouldn't need to a farm occupation is allowed on an ag farm.
A secondary use like a storage unit.
Yeah,
A repair
I
shop,
mean,
something
farm
like that.
occupations are as common in Lancaster County as any use you're ever going to find. I mean, and that's just because it helps farmers have an additional income stream. I mean, that's the entire point, to keep farmers farming. So it's not a second principal use, but you do need to be sure you meet the requirements. And we would have to meet all these requirements. I mean, you'd have to go to Tony and say, this is met, this is met, this is met. That's already here. So you're not bypassing any of that. You're imposing the same requirements that you impose on a farm on this farm. It's just for some reason, farm occupations aren't permitted on a farm in the C1 district.
May I address a few questions of a fellow landowner? I represent Ron Good.
Okay?
So the alternatives that you have, you could go the zoning route instead of asking for special legislation here, because other landowners may come to this board and say, I want this, I want that, can you draft that for me? Why don't you just take the zoning route?
Well, because we wouldn't be entitled to a variance.
But that's the route you should take when it's already zoned this way.
No.
I understand that may be difficult or impossible, but that's the route, you're already zoned. I mean, I understand the story, I'm very sympathetic with that. But I think you're setting precedent.
There's no precedent for legislative decisions? Absolutely not. A legislative decision is what these folks are elected to do. It's not an adjudicated decision.
You're
There's
carving it out just
absolutely
for the
no precedent being set.
I believe you are. I think people that are not zoned the way they want are going to come before this board and say, I need an exception here.
Sir,
Yeah,
that is what democracy is about. Anybody can do that any day of the year. They can come to this board as
I'm not
elected
saying they
officials.
can't. That's not what I'm saying.
I don't understand what you're saying. There's no
I'm saying
precedent.
you're setting precedent for other people to come forward seeing what has been done before today, is my point.
If you look at their ordinance and when it was adopted, and you look at what the ordinance is now, do you know how many amendments this board has adopted?
Well, certainly, I do understand
Has
that.
that
You're
set
asking them to go to
precedent?
7,000 square feet. I mean, I understand the comparison, but you're asking for something that goes beyond that, even if your comparison is correct. Is that you're saying this is ag, you're asking for more. You're saying we're just like a farmer, and I understand what you're playing, I mean, not playing, but I mean, what you're saying here is that this is a farm and it will always be a farm. I understand that. But you're asking for 31,000 square feet.
That's
So
right.
you're asking for something special for this landowner. That's not even consistent with your argument of farming,
Why isn't it?
because you're going from 4,000 to 7,000.
The point of a farm occupation is to support the farm, right? So, I mean, I guess you would agree that they should at least be entitled to 4,000. Would you agree with that?
I would not agree with that, because they're already in the C district. I mean, I understand that there's a legacy of farm.
So you're here just to oppose them even having a farm occupation, right? So
No,
you're here
farm
just for your
occupation-
client's interest to
Absolutely not.
oppose them
Absolutely
having a
not.
farm occupation.
Absolutely not. What I'm saying is that he's doing commercial purpose. He's asking for a commercial use here. Right, he's asking for commercial, I
No,
understand
it's time out. It's a fifth generation farm.
Yeah.
They're asking for supplemental income to maintain the farm. So do you understand farm occupations are commercial occupations that supplement the
I
income?
understand.
So I guess to the extent that you're saying a farm occupation is a commercial use, yes, they're asking for that, but if they would stop farming it, then they couldn't have a farm occupation. So I guess I'm missing the point. I mean, are you saying that they should have to stop farming it if they wanted to use the barns there for some kind of farm occupation?
What I'm saying is that 4,000 square feet, maybe, is a consideration that the board may want to consider, but I think expanding it, correct, is going too far. And I think that's a consideration the board gets to make. Obviously, you and I can debate about
Totally
that.
agree. I think it's really up to the board. I mean, I think you'd be hard pressed to say that they should at least get 4,000 square feet when that's already in your ordinance. I think the question is, does this board think it should be allowed for 7,000 square feet? And I agree,
No, and I think you're
this is
right.
the give and take that I think,
Absolutely.
this is the way it works. But,
Absolutely.
yeah, I think you understand that.
Here's a couple key points as I see it. There's obviously some different points of discussion here. And when it comes to making a decision on this, perhaps it should be an ordinance change rather than a text amendment, so that way it can be advertised and have input from people throughout the township, not just ones that are specifically dealing with
But
this.
I'm sorry, I mean, that's what we're proposing to do.
An ordinance change.
Yeah, that's the whole point.
Formalized.
Yes, I'm
advertised.
sorry, I thought you understood that. We have been coming because before we submit a petition for an ordinance change, we wanted to be sure this board would consider it. And each time we come, you say, we're not sure, come back, and we keep coming back. But yes, this isn't, we're not asking you to approve anything tonight.
Okay.
All we're asking that is if we submit a petition, that you will accept it and send it to the planning commission for their review, and then eventually it'll come back for you to actually have a vote. But you're not binding yourself tonight. I think we just didn't want to go through the expense and time if you were saying, no way, we don't want to consider this. There's no reason for us to keep doing this.
Right.
You're representing Tony Good, right?
Yes, I am.
And he lived with 4,000 square feet, because he spent a hell of a lot of money for his establishing along 222, and along Denver Road was a lot of money spent there too.
What's about what we had here before, okay? I think obviously that is a spot of real issue for him, that he's commercially zoned and he had to go through a process like any commercial landowner has to do what he wanted to do, and now someone else wants to do something even at 4,000 square feet, and they're in this district. I'm sorry that they're in that district. If they want to rezone it, and I understand your points, that's an issue that we're all stuck with. I'm an R2, so I guess I can put townhouses in. My next door neighbor can only do a single family residence. You know, I bought this property, I know he inherited. I understand that this story is
I bought that.
emotional. Okay, so the story is emotional, I understand that, but
I just beg to differ. I can't believe how many municipalities that go throughout this county, and what do they say? We want to preserve farmland. That is what they say. If I try and rezone farmland, I would be run out of Lancaster County. We have a 5th generation family that wants to keep farming, and they don't even get the same protection that everybody else in the township gets if they farm. That doesn't make any sense. We can have a debate on whether it should be 4,000 or 7,000. I get that. And I take the point there that an argument could be made that you shouldn't increase it. But I don't see any argument that would suggest you would penalize somebody who's farming because the township at some point happened to zone it C1 and agriculture is a permitted use in C1. If agriculture wasn't permitted in your district, there may be a better argument that maybe a farm occupation shouldn't be allowed in that district, but it is permitted. So I guess I would just want to be sure that if we submit the petition and go to the planning commission and go to the county planning commission and then come back here for a hearing and pay the fee, that this board's willing to consider this, or if there's no interest in it, then we just need to know that now.
Hasn't this occurred historically across East Cocalico, West Cocalico, a number of areas?
That,
Where you have call it a satellite use on a farm.
secondary use.
Secondary use, satellite use on a farm.
There are multiple farms in the township that have buggy repair shops and, flower shops, all that kind of stuff. They have supplemental income, especially in the winter months when they can't farm. That's a given. They come before the zoning board for a special exception and it's granted. I have, I say, quite a few in the township since I'm here.
There might have been an instance or two where they've been turned down as well,
Correct.
where the use gets to be a little over the top.
Correct. Wood shops, all that kind of stuff.
There's one specific where they had a metal business there and they had to move out to a commercial
Correct.
zone.
They were doing metal fabrication at a farm for many, many years.
It grew a little bit in
Grew,
size.
and thankfully, they're one of the biggest manufacturers we have in our township today. They moved to a lot of industrial zone, but that has nothing to do with this. But yes, these farm occupations, these farm businesses are there to help sustain that farm through the months when they can't grow crops.
The other issue becomes the size. I consulted the farmland, Lancaster County Farmland Preserve Board and talked to them. They, with, just for common knowledge, I have a farm that is preserved. So, I'm familiar with that. Lancaster County is, the Preservation Board is, in my opinion, very liberal in what they allow secondary uses on farms. There are multiple different businesses that occur on preserved farms.
Is your farm preserved?
Well, just as a reference point.
Well, preserved farm is a whole different animal. You're getting paid a lot of money to give up your rights.
It
I mean,
comes
it-
down to the fact of the second use on the property,
but
what
if
they
you-
allow.
you're buying an easement. You
Okay.
get paid for an easement.
All right, well, if you don't want to let me finish.
I'm sorry,
just
go
stop
ahead.
it there. But, I specifically asked different parameters which might be attributable to something, a situation similar to this. And, on a minimal use basis, it would be allowable in their eyes. When it becomes a problem is when it becomes more intensive.
Right.
And, that's where I'm trying to draw a distinction here. How intensive is it versus, it was explained to me that,
And it really should go through the land development process.
I'm sorry?
It should go through like a land development process to figure
You
out
mean a
all
farm,
this
a
stuff.
farm occupation?
But it's in a commercial district, right?
Well, you're using an existing barn that no longer is being used, so if you would be building a new structure, you're right, it would have to go through land development, but I guess I'm a little confused because farmers do this all the time. They have old ag buildings that are no longer being used, so they're trying to find a way to generate income, to maintain the buildings and maintain the farm, and you would never go through land development for that unless you need to put in a driveway or parking or something. But you would go through a zoning review to be sure you meet the requirements of the zoning ordinance. When you look at farm occupations, dead storage is probably the least impactful kind of use that could be there compared to some kind of mini manufacturing or blacksmith shop or all kinds of things that would be permitted. So I think I would encourage the board to view this as a farm occupation, and to me the question is, should it be 4,000 or 7,000, and we can have a legitimate discussion about that, but I'm confused a little bit about why the farm occupation on a farm is a problem. That it seems to me like a no-brainer, but obviously there's a difference of opinion out in the audience, so yeah.
So why not go before the zoning hearing board, like this gentleman said?
Because we'd have to ask for a variance because farm occupations aren't allowed in the C1 ag district.
Exactly.
So, well, right, and that's the whole point. That's why you go to the supervisors for a text amendment, because we're not entitled to a variance. There's no,
You have to show hardship.
yeah, I mean, you would, so they already have a use on the property of farming use. So, yeah, I'm not sure, go to the zoning board, that's a waste of another $4,000 to get denied, and then I guess we come back here and ask for the text amendment. But, I think it's just really a question of overall policy for the board, which is if you allow an ag use in your C1 district, why not allow a farm occupation on there? It's no different than if it was in the ag district. Unless what you're saying is you don't want farms to survive in your C1 district. That's really the policy decision. And I think the argument here is pull it out and develop it as C1. And that's a policy decision that you can make. I mean, it would shock me, but if your policy is we don't want farms in our C1 district, we want them developed, then we need to know that, because then I guess that's the way they go. But then I would suggest you take ag out of the C1 district, because it doesn't make sense to leave it in there if you're not gonna let farmers make a go of it in the C1 district.
And that's a valid point. And maybe instead of doing these spot amendments here and there, is to really examine our ordinances in detail and in full and make the proper changes as a whole.
I mean, I suppose, I guess I just, if the board is interested in removing ag from the C1, again, that would surprise me that that's the direction the board wants to take, but, I mean, I think the board has enough information to know if we should proceed or if we shouldn't.
That's the wish of the board. Alan, I got a question, can I?
Yeah, go ahead.
How many places, Doug Macklin, I'm sorry. How many farms in East Cocalico, I asked this question before and all three of you, well, four of you people sat up there like I had three eyes when I asked the question. How many farms in East Cocalico Township have two different zones on them, C1 and ag? It's an easy question. How many?
A lot of them.
Nah, that's not an answer. A lot is what, 5 to you and 10 to me? I need a specific answer.
I have no clue.
Well, then don't say a lot. That's the problem. You guys throw terms around, but you don't have anything to back it up with. You know, I pointed things out to you guys when this gentleman was here the last time. There's a lot of people around here, and I gave you specific names. Jeff said anything that has a farm building on it should remain a farm. And I pointed out more than one person who had 3 businesses in that farm. Ain't nothing happened to him since. He's still doing it. I mean, you hold these meetings and you get input and then you don't follow through on it. These people are doing it the right way. They're not trying to sneak under the radar like half the people do in this township. They're coming in and they're asking permission, and you're gonna deny a 5th generation farm because at some point in time it was split in zones. That's not his fault. And I don't disagree with this lawyer, I missed his name, but that's neither here nor there. It is what it is. But again, I still don't have an answer, how many? I think this is one of 2 or 3 in the whole freaking township that are zoned like this. And I'm telling you, you guys are, if you deny this thing, the word will get out real quick. You're anti-build, you're anti-growth, you're anti-social, you're anti-farming. You need to think long and hard about it. I don't know this young man. Not personally, I know him as a friend, but that's it. That's as far as I know. He lives down the street from me. I'm not here because of that. I just think it's the wrong thing. He's not building 50 mini-storage buildings. He's not doing that. He's already told you that. But because his land happens to be zoned ag and commercial, you're punishing him. Wrong. And I'll accept that answer whenever you guys are ready to give it to me. How many farms? And you can sit there and laugh, Jeff, that's fine. Well, I know where you're coming from. You got your land preserved, you got money in your pocket, yeah, that's right.
Let's get Doug an answer,
Mm-hmm.
okay? Let's get Mr. Rackley an answer as well.
can do that.
Okay. There's a considerable change here, because I think the original plan was the 10,000, and now we're down
4.
to 4.
Well, we,
No, that
4
was
is,
Sorry, we're down to 7,
7.
excuse me.
right.
Yes, thank you. It's a significant decision to make. And I would like that information that Mr. Mackley mentioned. I'd would like to have that before I make this decision.
And just remember,
Mm-hmm.
we're not asking for a decision. We're just asking for feedback if this
For
is
the
something.
next step.
So it gets passed on to the planning.
Right, so the next step is we would submit a petition and $1,000 check. And then you would take it and send it to the Township Planning Commission and the County
And the
Planning Commission.
commission.
And then it would come back here for an official published hearing for you to vote on it. So this is just, don't tell us to spend a whole bunch of money if you're not interested in it. Because it's a pure legislative decision. There's no obligation that you approve it, even if you say, sure, we'll consider it. But it's very helpful to at least know that it's something that, and I guess the other thing that I would say is, even if 7,000 square feet seems too much, I would ask that we get feedback on whether you would allow just what already is there, which is 4,000 square feet, which is just to allow the farm occupation, because that's better than nothing. Right now, they're harmed. So, and once we get that kind of feedback, then we would proceed accordingly. If the feedback is, we're fine with the way it is, then that's the one way we go. If you say we're okay with up to 7,000 feet, we'll go that way. And if you say we want to leave it the way it is, then we're not going to submit anything.
So clearly all they're asking for now is for you gentlemen to move it on to the planning commission, the Township Planning Commission and the County Planning Commission for their consideration. County would come in and give their point of view as well, and that would give your planning commission insight in it, and they could weigh in on the process as well. You're not making a decision to do it, you're just making a decision to move it forward to the next step.
As I mentioned earlier, I'd like to get that answer that Mr. Mackley mentioned
Yeah.
first.
Yeah.
Okay.
To know how many comments have that before you move it on.
Okay.
Okay, fair enough. That's fine. I think it's good. You get the information you need. And if there's additional questions, that's perfectly appropriate. It's a legislative
Next
decision.
meeting
Yes.
for a decision.
Okay. All right, thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Resolution 2020-07, personal property value less than 2,000.
Hi, so this is a resolution that Tom drafted for us that would give us certain criteria on selling property listed at a value below $2,000. You know, to the private sale bid or through municipal bid, and then what would happen if we received no bids on it, what would be the proper procedures. So this is just a resolution laying all that out for you.
Okay. What facilitated this is we have a John Deere rear mower, a 6-inch auger, 10-inch auger, and a 3-point PTO attachment that was left over from the old tractor we traded in. So the resolution is 2020-07, procedure accordance to the requirement of the Sacrifice Township Code of Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, 35 PS 66504, for the sale of personal property, the value which you estimate is less than $2,000, and estimated procedure for sale of personal property, the value over $2,000 if no bid is received. I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Any comments or questions? Yes, Doug?
It's just a question, wouldn't it be easier to say township property instead of personal property? It sounds like something in my house. I mean, none of us as an individual own it. It's not personal, it's township collective, correct? It's just a word change, that's all.
Mm-hmm.
Valid.
That's fine.
Thank you.
Can we,
Municipal property.
municipal? Yeah. That's a good comment, thanks, Doug. Please change it to it.
I will.
And
Second.
any other comments or questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carried. Thank you.
Rec board,
So, you know, the rec board, they want to do fundraising efforts. We wanted to discuss this more at the Park and Recreation Board, but unfortunately there wasn't enough attended to have a quorum, so we could not have a meeting. But Tom did comment on that any kind of fundraising that they wish to do needs to be addressed and authorized by the board.
the rec board was created as an advisory board.
They are an advisory board only.
Yeah.
That is correct. So, I would wait till, we finally have a Park and Rec meeting and clearly define what they're looking for, and then the board can make a more
I don't think-
informed
I don't
decision.
think we should make a decision.
I don't think we have enough information right now. They need to outline
So,
what
we'll
their,
put this table then.
they need to outline what their thought process is, what their plans are.
Right, and, you know, what criteria, you know, and if they want to raise funds to purchase equipment, if they don't want to raise enough funds, where's the rest of the money coming from? There's a lot of unanswered questions.
Okay, police chief.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Sorry for stepping out, I needed to get a drink with this mask on, it was getting a little long, so I will try and make this quick, but I have quite a few things to go over, so as I indicated in my report, Officer Tyler Lehman started on July 13th, 2020. That brings the department's complement to 15 officers. He will be in his field training for 14 weeks ending October 19th, 2020. So that's quite a time span in there to get somebody or get an officer on the street in the car by himself. So as we kind of talked before, I would ask for a motion, if it pleases the board, to approve the onset of proceedings necessary in order to hire an additional police officer. This is in reference to Officer Fisher going back to the school as the SRO, bring us back to the complement of 16 officers. And this is, when I say those numbers, it's also including me, to where we were previously, and having 16 officers, as I said, to complement Officer Fisher's position in school. I don't know how you feel about that.
I think that position needs to be filled, because I'm hopeful, continue to be hopeful, that the schools are going to proceed going forward, and Officer Fisher is going to be back over there.
And I can see that there's, even if there is some kind of hybrid, which I have no information, but I still think his position would be beneficial to the school district, no matter what happens, and no matter what's going on. So that would be my thought on
Yeah, I'll make that motion.
I'll second it. Any comments or questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carried. Thank you.
And just in reference to that, there is a consortium test coming up for the county, which we are part of that consortium. I believe that's being held in September. So I will try to work out the details if they're going to open it up just prior to that, or how we're going to do it, but I just want to make you aware of that. I attended the Lancaster County Chiefs of Police meeting, and one of the issues that was brought up at the last, well, I'm not sure with the last county commissioner meeting, but at a county commissioner meeting is to remove the police radios, or remove encryption from the police radios. And basically what was approved previously in Lancaster County for the safety of the officers and for protection of information. And obviously officer safety is paramount to me. It's truly important that somebody who's wishing to do us harm does not have information of where we are, what we're doing, what calls we're responding to. We see it in the news all the time. The other concern is information of victims, or information of areas where crime are occurring before it's released in a formal press release, and before it's released through the proper channels in reference to a criminal complaint through the district